All right, ladies and gentlemen, what's up? This is PC, another episode of Supreme Being. I want to thank everybody this year. I know a ton of you have been sharing, little things about how it's the top podcast that you're listening to, so on and so forth. I think this year we got almost 1 million downloads for the podcast, so it's been doing really, really well. Appreciate the support. We got another guest on here today that we're going to introduce in a second. I know you guys have been enjoying the interview series, so we wanted to keep it going. I plan to do at least a handful more before the end of the year. But Jonah, my friend, what's going on, bro? How are you?
Nothing much, dude. I appreciate you having me on. I've been having a great time doing different things with you. You coming on my podcast, me doing that little intro into how Subject Twos works for your agents. That was fun, man. I love doing this stuff. I love collaborating. I'm glad to be here. And I'm excited.
When's the last time you came to Miami, bro? If ever.
I was actually in Miami not that long ago for a bachelor party, though. It was not a work thing. It was like my friend is getting married, and it was a bachelor party, and that was the typical Miami. But that was like I was there for 3 days. It was super fun. That was like a month ago, so actually not that long ago. I keep going back to Florida. Like Orlando, I feel like has so many real estate for some reason. Like Orlando and Tampa. But that was the first time I'd been in Miami for like 5 years, apart from that one time like a month ago.
Well, I'm doing an event next month, but it's going to be a regular event. So whenever you're down to come out, let me know, and I can have you speak at the event.
I love it. I love it. Next month might be hard because I'm going to be, but if you plan me out in like 2 or 3 months, I'd be willing to come down.
Sounds good, brother. All right. So for everybody who doesn't know you, dude, quick introduction, and we'll roll right into it.
Yeah, so my name's Jonah. I do several different things. Probably the thing that makes me the most amount of money, my calling card, is I mainly do wholesaling through agent outreach. I do networking with real estate agents. That's how I make the vast majority of my money. I also make some money in a bunch of other smaller things. Like I also disposition other people's deals. So I JV with people in Northern California and Colorado and soon to be Southern California. With cash deals. I own a handful of rentals subject to with creative financing. So I make money there. And then I have my own software called Simple Send, SIMPL Send, which is like my CRM for how to do wholesaling with my business model. And those are basically the three ways I make most of my money, and affiliates. I've been doing, but like the main thing, wholesaling through real estate agents, I've been doing that for 3.5 years. We're about $1 million in revenue now a year, right? That's what we did this year. It's going to be $1 million in revenue. Hopefully it'll be 1.5 million or 2 million next year. That's what I'm gunning for. And yeah, I've been doing it 3.5 years, been doing that method, been mainly sticking to wholesaling with all those other little things that make me like couples of thousands of dollars a month, which is cool. But like the wholesaling is what brings in the vast majority of money. And yeah, that's basically me.
Awesome, bro. How did you originally get into it? I mean, did you like kind of stumble onto it? Were you working with like contractors before, and then you got introduced to real estate? Like, how did that whole thing start with you getting into like investing?
So my story is I graduated college, and then I did something that was very different than real estate or anything related to that. I did the Peace Corps. I did that for 2 years, and then I was kind of lost for a while. I had an entrepreneurial spirit in me since I was maybe 20, because that was the first time somebody introduced to me books like How to Win Friends and Influence People, Think and Grow Rich. And then that started me on the journey of like, this hits me, this like speaks to me, this entrepreneurship thing. But real estate had never really crossed my mind. I don't know why. It just wasn't like a thing that I ever thought I'd really want to do. I never particular interest in houses or buildings, right? Just never something that like intrigued me. I didn't like Legos when I was growing up, right? But one day I'm like trying to figure it out. I'm going through all sorts of different businesses, stocks. I did Gary V's like flipping at garage sales, which I didn't like at all. Like I tried a bunch of different side hustles. And then I eventually go to a long-term real estate investing meetup or long distance real estate investing meetup in San Francisco. It's all about how to invest in other states because it's really hard to do it in California, which is where I was living at the time. I do it and I'm like, that's great. but I don't have any money. So this doesn't seem realistic for someone without any money. So how do you get into real estate without any money? Right. And I started asking around, and obviously probably one of the first answers you ever get is wholesaling. Right. And once people started explaining the business model to me, it instantly clicked. I'm like, that's the one. I can do that. That's actually very, very doable for me. It's all based on how well I can relate to people and how well I can solve problems and how much am I willing to make cold calls. I can do that. I can grind and make that freaking happen. Right. Because I knew myself. I'm really good at getting people to like me. I've just always been good at that. I've been always really good at networking, being social, all of that type of stuff. So I knew I would crush that business model. And yeah, that's more or less. And then I just initially started with direct to seller, started making cold calls. I eventually joined a few mentorship programs. The first one I ever did was Astro Flipping and with Jamil Damji. And that one really taught me the basics of the business model that I'm doing now, where it's like, okay, instead of doing direct to the seller, what if we try to do direct to the agent and we try to do direct to and try to get deals from other wholesalers, right? So that's kind of how I started in real estate.
It's interesting. You brought something up. It sounds to me like you kind of identified through, looking at this opportunity, like what your strengths are. Like you brought up, being social and being able to network. Have you always been wired that way? Because I rarely ever hear that.
I would say yes. I feel like it was a strong suit of mine being social. I don't know if I've always been wired that way. In high school, I was more awkward, I would say, but eventually by the end of high school, I really was good at developing relationships with other human beings. And I just knew I was really good at that. So I bet there was a part of me that was always wired for that in some ways. But then I think end of high school, I really developed into the person who can do that.
Yeah. And then also alongside that being, I would assume that you're more like an optimistic person versus pessimistic, right?
Definitely. I'm very, very optimistic. I feel like you have to be optimistic to be a successful entrepreneur. If you're pessimistic, I think you're screwed just from the get-go. Like, how are you going to start a business that you have no idea if it's going to work if you're having pessimistic thoughts about it?
Yeah. And the interesting thing is I bring that up because like when I talk to a lot of young people or, people who are transitioning from another career into like doing what you do or getting into real estate or anything entrepreneurial, they view it from that lens of pessimism. Well, I have no connections. I'm not good with people. I'm an introvert. I don't have any money. And that's why I brought it up when you said, hey, I'm good at this. This works. That's kind of the same thing that I did when I got into real estate because I looked at my strengths and I feel like very few people actually do that. And they're like the opposite end of the coin where they're always so pessimistic. On that particular subject, do you have any feedback for people or maybe you can give them some insight into how
Here's that thing. So people need to start with before they start with a business, and this is like really hard for most human beings, I've realized. I think most people don't know themselves at all. Like they actually don't know what they're like whatsoever, right? I am really good at self-analyzation. I think that was also a skill I learned from books, like being like, what am I good at? What do I like? What am I enjoying? What do I naturally gravitate towards? What are my strengths and what are honestly my weaknesses, right? And actually thinking about them and taking a moment, thinking, who am I? What am I good at? Who am I at the party? Am I the guy at the party who shakes everyone's hand and says hello to them? Or am I the guy at the party who waits until someone comes up to me? There's nothing wrong with either. It's not a bad thing to be introverted and more of what I call an integrator, which you have different skill sets though, right? There's certain questions I ask people when they ask me, like, how do I get into this business? I'm like, well, who the hell are you? Right? Are you me? Like, I'm a little crazy. I had no money, so I put everything on a $10,000 credit card, right? That at 0% interest. That's great. That's a little crazy for people, right? Who have no money. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that if you don't have the personality to have that risk tolerance, right? If you're let's say if you're like an integrator or more of an introvert or more of a computer person, what I tell them is what I recommend to them is if they're starting a business, start a dispositions wholesaling business, which is basically, I have this business too, which is you focus on selling other people's deals to buyers. You're going to be naturally better at that because the person who wins at that game is who can sell the deal the fastest and the most efficiently. And that depends on how good of a system you create. you're good with computers and systems, you're going to crush that business model. Well, for me, I'm going to crush the model where it's about relating to other human beings and like building relationships and closing deals, right? The acquisition side of the business. Really, what's important is, who are you? Like who you are as a human being decides what you should be doing to make money in this world. And I think that's really key for people to understand, that they should do their best to go with their nature, not against their nature, if that makes sense. I see so many people try to go against their nature. They're that person who doesn't naturally like talking to people, and then they just force themselves to cold call. And it's like, I don't know. I don't think that's right for you, because like, you're just not that person, right? Just like if you put me or you, I think you're like me. If you had to sit at a computer and figure out CRMs and tech stuff all day, like if I had to do that all day, it drains me. I can do it basic enough, but it would drain me and I wouldn't be that good at it. So that's my recommendation to people, is follow your nature. Try to understand who you are first.
Yeah, and that would drive me crazy doing the techie stuff. That's why I have Annabelle, my assistant here. She handles all that.
Right.
I have no interest in doing that at all, right? That's interesting you said that, because no one that I would introduce you to that knew me in back in the day would tell you that I would have become the person that I am today in regards to relating to people the way that I do. So I think I'm one of the people who more morphed, right? When I looked at cold calling and door knocking and just speaking to people and like hustling, I wasn't necessarily looking forward to it. I didn't necessarily enjoy it, but I knew that was going to be an integral part of the process to become a higher level communicator and connecting with people, because in my eyes, that's really the recipe and the key to unlock everything. Because if we can connect with people, we can build relationships, we can sell, well, you're going to make money and you're going to be successful in anything you do. So I kind of felt like I needed to build that muscle and build that skill, even though I may not have had the natural propensity for that, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Potentially, yeah. I am curious though. Can I ask you a question? What makes you feel like you weren't that guy like back then? Like, I'm curious, because at least I've only known you for like a couple months, but you obviously seem to me like the guy, on at least now, who would be really good at closing, communication, being a realtor.
Yeah.
I know this podcast is about me a little bit, but like, what makes you say that you wouldn't have been good at that, or what made you think you wouldn't have been that guy?
Yeah, I just, when I look at how I am now, I was the opposite when I was younger, right? I wouldn't necessarily say I was shy per se, but I wasn't outspoken like I am now. I wasn't as bold as I am now. I didn't have the confidence that I have now. I wasn't going around to the parties and just talking to everybody and shaking hands and being the life of the party like I am now. You didn't catch me drinking and then dancing on the table with my shirt off. You know what I mean? So I feel like maybe I would have had that potential in me, but I didn't really tap into it until I looked at where I was, right, which was my more natural state, like you said, and said, you know what, I'm not satisfied with this, because I know the life that I want to live and where I want to go. This is a vital skill and thing that I need to develop. I really need to develop not just my inner confidence, but I really need to develop the communication skills. And I think I just laboriously kind of studied it and then took massive action to build that. And then, the hypersaturation, right? Doing Toastmasters, doing public speaking. I did improv a couple times, where I would go to a comedy club and just go on stage and,
Nice.
and bomb it, just to embarrass myself and get that out of my system, right? So, again, it came from the point of, I know this is the key to unlock what I want, right? But again, like I told you, if I brought on people that knew me in high school and middle school, they'd be like, I never imagined Bryan would be doing this. He's the last person I would have thought would have been a realtor and been doing stuff online, so that's kind of where that comes from.
And I believe it. Like, I mean, like, you don't always see it, right? Like, for me, I hated social media before real estate. I didn't like it. I thought it was being vain, right? I think what you're hitting and what I'm hitting, I think we're really saying the same thing, which is the pathway you see you could at least possibly develop yourself into, right? Because Bryan, I bet you, there's no way, in your head, probably, you don't see the possibility of you developing into the guy who's on the computer creating the systems, right? That maybe you were like, there's no way for me to hit that one. But the communication, there is a way, right?
Yeah.
And that's I think what you and I are both saying, is that know yourself well enough to know which pathway will lead to your success, at least eventually. Even if you're not necessarily the social guy right now, leading that pathway there where you're like, I could become that guy. Or if it's more like, I feel like I could become the guy who creates an insanely good system or insanely does it, right? I like saying that just because I want people to know there are many different pathways to success. It's not just, you don't necessarily always have to be the incredible communicator, the guy on stage. I have a business partner, his name's Tyler. He's my behind the guys scene. He's created an insanely good system where if you put me on the phones, or if you put anybody who's a good closer on the phones, the deals are going to close. Like the leads are just generated naturally. So
Yeah.
that's just, I think that's what I was trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love it, dude. So in regards to that, if we're going to be on this subject, right? Because I love this subject and I think it's super important. In regards to like connecting with people, networking, like, do you have any tips for people? Because, you know, I thought by now, especially because I've been creating content for 10 years and talking about this stuff so much, I figured it would be, people would have figured it out by now, but it seems like they still struggle connecting with other human beings. Is there any like words of insight you can give to people on like basic networking and getting out there, assuming they're at that ground level where it's like, okay, this is a new world for me?
Just realize I would do a couple of different things in your head. So here's a couple of different things that I think would help someone. Number one, How to Win Friends and Influence People. That's the best book on just like how to get people to like you, just in general. Read that book. But in terms of my tips, at least the tip that in my head, if you're struggling with networking or talking to, or you're like, I really want to talk to other people, but I feel weird talking to other people. Like if you're just realize that, and this I think is also a confidence thing too. This is what helps me with self-confidence, is that everyone there is thinking the same thing. Everyone has a little bit of butterflies. Even you and me like can have a little bit of butterflies when meeting a new person, like not 100% sure like what it's like. It's easier when it's at a networking event, but like if I had to just start talking to random people, there's butterflies in there, right? Everyone's feeling the exact same thing and thinking the exact same thing. In the end, the person who looks super confident, the only difference between him and you is that either he's not thinking at all. There are some people that just don't think about it, or he's thought about it so much that he's realized that everyone else is exactly the same way. Everyone else has those insecurities. Everybody has insecurities of meeting new people, have social anxiety. Just always realize the person you're meeting has the exact same anxieties as you have, right? And so when you think about it like that, and when you realize that, I think it becomes a lot easier to just go up to people because you're like, oh, you're just me. I'm just talking to like not me, but I'm talking to someone who has the same problems I have, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a good tip if you're having like struggles with it, like you're afraid or don't naturally want to go do it. Now, in terms of, okay, I'm willing to talk to people, what should I actually be talking to them about to actually gain value in real estate, specifically business networking? We want to talk about that a little bit. What you want to do is first think about, there's like a formula, like I talk about this, like this has been my speeches actually, funny enough, where when I go to meetups, I talk about it if I'm speaking at a meetup, which is you have to like do some pre-work before you actually even go to the meetup. You have to be like, what do I have? As in, what am I good at? What are my skills? What could I offer another human being? What do I actually want? Why am I even going to this meetup? What am I looking for? Is it knowledge? Is it a deal? Is it private money? What am I looking for? And you know what I'm looking for. What type of person has what I want, right? Know, like if it's private money, it's going to be a lender, right? Or someone who is richer and doesn't know what to do with their money, something like that, right? You have to know who it is. And the last one is give overwhelming amounts of value and not necessarily expect anything in return. That last step is insanely hard to do, but I can give an example, right? I'll give I think one of the easiest ways to network is through podcasts. That's how you and I met, was through my podcast, right? I get to meet people who I find interesting and bring them on. And I'm adding value to you because I'm introducing you to a new audience. I'm increasing your following. And also I'm letting people know who you are, right? And then once that happens, I get what I want usually from the other person, which is generally doing podcasts with them, going on their podcast, maybe doing events with them, eventually doing deals with them, right? So you have to creatively think about it. I think podcasting is really easy and simple way to do it is starting a podcast if you want to network with higher level people. But the better you are at answering that last question is really, I think, one of the definitional ways of how you're able to earn more money, is how can you add more value to everyone around you, right? So that's the formula. Those are my tips for networking.
And I feel a lot of people, at least that I talk to and deal with, they kind of come into this game like almost like give me, or it's like what's in it for me, right? And then what you said is the exact opposite of that. And I find where they clash is, well, I need money, I need to make sales. How am I going to give value when I'm like building, right? So from a mental standpoint, because I dealt with that a lot in the beginning, and I don't think it affected me that much, but it was always there, that lingering little voice in my head. Do you have any advice for people in regards to that? Because I think that, and they call it in our industry, commission breath, right? Like when you're out there, people feel like you're being disingenuous.
People who just want to take instead of give.
Yeah. Take. I need to grow. I need to make money. It's all about me.
I would just say you just don't understand the universe. The universe is that whatever you give, you get. Always. It always happens that way. Always. I don't know what to say other than try giving instead of taking and see what happens. Like I don't think there's anything more to it than that. You don't believe me? Try it. See what happens. Try doing it 50 times and see what happens, right? If you can do that formula of what do I want, who has what I want, what do I have to offer them, and how am I going to give them overwhelming amounts of value or as much value as possible, do that 50 times with 50 people, and I guarantee you'll make more money than you've ever made in your entire life if you honestly do that exercise. I think that's all I can tell them is you're going to just do it selfishly. You'll make way more money.
Yeah.
That's that.
I agree, man. I totally agree. I look at everything I've done in the industry or even online. I think I have like 2,000 something YouTube videos. I mean, I've just done so much. So that's why now I can just make a post or do this and people come flooding, you know what I mean? Because you give so much. And I just think when you're more in the mode of building something long-term, because that's really what I think it comes down to with most people. It's like they're short-sighted, right? Like, oh, I want the money now, I need a commission. But when you're thinking and building long-term, you kind of fall into the mode that you just said, because your eyesight is ahead instead of being just at one step in front of you. And I think that really helps them from a technical standpoint. So, okay. So, right. You've been doing it 3.5 years, you get in, right? You're doing your thing. What was the first like 6 to 12 months when you decided to do like wholesaling and get onto this side? Was it silky smooth, or did you have your road bumps along the way?
The first 12 months, I made $10,000 in assignment fees. So no, it wasn't silky smooth. I didn't do that great my first year, right? I did some really good things and I did some really bad things. The best thing that I did is I found insanely good mentors and joined insanely good programs. I had broken the mindset barrier almost immediately about education, right? Where I knew if I paid for a good mentor and good education, it will be worth it. And it comes back tenfold, which it 100% did. I joined the program called Astro Flipping, which if people are interested in those programs, you guys can DM me, give you guys discounts and all that now. A big referral of theirs. I joined their program. They taught me everything I needed to know. I had like bi-weekly Zooms where I could ask one of the best wholesalers in the nation what the hell to do whenever I'm dealing with any situation, right? That was an amazing good first step for me. And then I got my first deal in 4 months. I got that $10,000 check. What I did was I took that $10,000, didn't pay off my credit card. I bought another program called Subject 2 or Sub 2 with Pace Morby, another great real estate mentorship program. And it was great. Amazing. I got so much value out of that program. Those were the two of the best decisions I've ever made in real estate. They're probably joining those two programs and then partnering with my business partner are probably the 3 best decisions I've ever made in business. Now the issue was, now that I'm part of 2 programs, I had 2 different mentors who have 2 different opinions about everything, right? They're different philosophies. So what ended up happening was I tried to create a JV business, which is that disposition wholesaling, a agent outreach business, and a direct to seller wholesaling business all at the same time, which is basically the equivalent of, this is my metaphor for it. I'm trying to cross a river. I see 3 incredible builders who one built the bridge out of stone, one built it out of brick, and one built it out of wood, and they all crossed the bridge. And my genius idea says, I'm going to build all 3 bridges to get across the river, right? But what happens, obviously, if you're a solopreneur trying to build 3 businesses, is you just build a third of each bridge and you don't cross the river.
Yep.
It took me about 8 months to realize that was what was happening. And so then I said, I'm going to build it out of direct to agent. That's going to be my bridge. And then I immediately, as soon as I made that decision, within 2 weeks, I got a deal for $20K, right? Because I finally was focusing. That's literally all it took, because in business, everything's exponential. If you talk to 10 people a day, you might get a deal every 4 months. You talk to 20 people a day, you'll get a deal a month. You talk to 30 people a day, you'll get a deal a week. It's exponential. But if I talk to 10 sellers, then 10 agents, then 10 wholesalers, those benefits don't accrue. That doesn't work that way. You have to talk to 10 of the same type of business, same type of human being. So my greatest successes was I paid for mentorship. I got good mentorship, so I knew what I was doing, or I could ask someone who knew what they were doing. The mistake I made is I tried to build too many bridges. I should have just stuck to one thing, focus as hard as I can, and just go into that. Now, it's good that I tried out everything because I knew which one I would like. I'm not going to say that it was a bad thing in and of itself, but when you're ready to actually make money, you have to choose something and just go all in. That's how you actually make money, is focusing.
I like that, man. Were you ever interested in the traditional agent side, or did you always just immediately gravitate towards the investment side?
No, I wanted to be an investor immediately. Once I found out that I could do wholesaling without a license, I'm like, I don't want to be a real estate agent. I mean, obviously, no disrespect to real estate agents. I make all of my money with real estate agents.
Sure.
But real estate agents, usually it seems to me like a job, not a business. Or to make it into a business seems incredibly harder than making a real estate investment business. It seems way, way harder. So I was never that interested. I was like, I just want to be an investor.
I don't blame you, man. Yeah, there's a lot of bozos out here too. Because the barrier to entry to get your real estate license is really simple, right? Like, I've always been one to try to raise the standard and even like try to petition, like, yo, we need to like make it harder for people to get their license, because you have so many part-timers and people who don't really take it serious, and that creates like a negative impact on the image of the realtor. Because I meet a lot of people who are either neutral or they don't think much of realtors because they know somebody who's a realtor who's slacking off, right? Their cousin, right? Their friend, their brother, right? Their parents. And it's crazy, man. But
I don't have any disrespect for realtors, by the way. Sorry to interrupt. I'm just going to let you know, I love realtors. I think it's a great gig. I think it's a great job. For me, the reason why I didn't want to do it was in my head, it was like, how do I make that into a business? Or it seems like I have to become a broker, which takes a couple years after being a real estate agent to even be able to have agents under me. So anyways, but I love real estate agents. They're great people.
Yeah, it can be a process, man. So future, right? Like, what are you looking to do the next 12, 24 months? Are you expanding? Are you looking at any other business ventures or opportunities? Like, what's going on?
So in my main wholesaling business, I want to expand that. The biggest thing that's going to happen next year is opening up Southern California. We're mainly opened up in Northern California and Colorado. We're going to open up Southern California. It's going to be an interesting thing because I've never opened up a new market. How I want to open it up this time is I want to hire everyone that's needed immediately instead of what I done to grow my business so far, which is I fill a role, make enough money, hire somebody, fill a role, like I'm the role, and then it's slowly taken off by hiring people. This time we're going to be like, okay, let's open it up where Jonah never is in any role, right? So that's going to be the next big challenge for my main business. Like, how do you do that? Is it the same thing? Like, how do I not screw that up, right? Okay. That's the main thing, and that should just in and of itself next year, I think it should double the revenue, right? I think because SoCal is bigger than Northern California. There's more people, there's more areas than Northern California, which means more deals. I can hire more people to do more things. And then there's a bunch of other things. So I have my CRM, which is I call Simple Send, which I said at the beginning of this, which is my CRM. It's all of my templates, all of my workflows, all of my systems that I use in my business every single day to generate 80 to 100K in revenue every single month through wholesaling, through real estate agents and or wholesalers, right? That business, we right now might have like 85 or 90 subscribers. I want to get that to 500 by the end of next year. I want to 5x that, which I think is possible. Because so far that's just really been my communities and my social media. So that's my goal with that. And then I want to really grow my social media next year. I really, 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 really want to focus really hard on that. Not just Instagram. I'm mainly focusing on Instagram. Do way more YouTube content. My YouTube is just my podcast, basically. I need to be creating YouTube content. I'm going to like give away, and this is like the formula that I was telling you earlier. I'm going to create an entire course that's exactly how to create my business from scratch. And I'm going to just give it away for free, right? I'm going to give it away for free for several different reasons. One is I'm going to make, like when I do that course, there's going to be like there's obviously like many different reasons, but I want to show, because this is kind of going back to your person, like, why would you do that as like from the taker's mentality, right? Because it's very strategical why I'm giving it out for free. One reason is because one is the altruistic part, which is I really like helping people. It's really fun. I actually just naturally enjoy it. I love seeing people get deals. But the other part is selfishly, I can take all of that course, I can clip up YouTube videos from it, post those, right? So that gives content for my YouTube, that then grows that. Two, there's a lot of different softwares, including SimpleSend, but a lot of different other softwares that I use that I would be able to affiliate throughout the course, and I don't need to sell the programs. It's literally part of doing the course is buying those programs and making it happen, right? Which would then be a revenue source through affiliates. And then three, I have too many people hitting me up asking me like questions about how to do this business. And it's honestly selfishly to be like, I just do the free course, take the free course. All you have to do is give me your email. And then once you're on the email list, then if there's anything else I want to sell or anything else I want you to know about, any other challenges, it's free or otherwise, then you're in my ecosystem, right? For whenever maybe I start a community or I do that. So there's so many different benefits for giving something away for free that it starts growing everything else. So those are some of my goals. Those are like, I'm trying to think. I'm also want to get into multifamily next year. I want to by the end of 2024, I want to somehow be part of a multifamily deal and owning some part of it more than like 50 units. I've been buying single families and I'm just like, this is way too annoying. I feel like multifamily is like how I get the scale I want immediately because I don't know how many people own single family rentals in here. It's like, I'm not really making any money. Like after maintenance and vacancies and everything else, I'm not actually making any money. Maybe from appreciation I am eventually, and I'm paying down the mortgage and all that. But I'd rather see if we do like 100 units or something immediately. I think then the scale will be there to make money immediately. So
yeah, you got to set things up a particular way with single families. Like most of my portfolio is single families, and I make pretty good, passive income from it. But yeah, it can be a pain, right? That's awesome, Matt. Is there anything, I know you're going to release all this stuff. Do you want to plug like your YouTube or anything you're doing like in the immediate future?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, just follow me on Instagram. It's my name. Follow me, subscribe on YouTube. It's my name. I just finished a challenge last week where I literally showed everybody how to close deals through real estate agents. I think I'm going to do it again, probably in a month or two. So just keep following me. If you have questions or anything, you have deals in Northern California or Colorado, DM me on Instagram. If you got private money, always looking for that. But really just follow me on the socials and then keep in contact and like keep paying attention to the stuff I'm doing. I guarantee I'll be giving out free value about how to make millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Love it, bro. Cool, man. All right, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. We'll have Jonah again in the future, and hopefully we'll be doing something with him in person soon. Thanks for coming on, bro. I appreciate it.
Thank you, my man. Thank you for having me.
Of course.